Hello, welcome back to the next instalment of our Unlocking Big Magic conversations about creative living. So we are basing these on Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, which is Creative Living Beyond Fear. My name's Cali Bird, and with me is Leslie Pyne. So I'll just say a quick introduction about myself, then I'll pass you to Leslie. So yeah, if you didn't watch the first episode, first of all, there'll probably be a link to it wherever you're watching this. You might be watching this on my blog or Leslie's blog, and we'll definitely link to the first part and subsequent parts of the conversation. So yeah, my name's Cali, and I love to encourage people to get on with their creative projects in and around what they have to do in life, like working, looking after kids, looking after family. I also love to write. I recently published this book, My Pride and Joy. And Leslie and I love to chat about creativity. So I'll just let you introduce yourself, Leslie, a bit more fully.
Thank you. I'm Leslie Pyne, author of Finding Joy Beyond Childlessness, and yeah, blogger and supporter of childless women. And creativity has been really, really helpful for me on my journey to wholeness, if you like to call it that. And it's becoming more and more important. I mean, living a creative life is who I am actually now. And yeah, that's me.
Okay, so just to place these conversations, we are looking to be releasing them early in 2021. We are recording it's currently the 9th of November, Monday the 9th of November, we're recording this episode, because we do seem to live in a fast changing world these days, what with coronavirus and everything else. So yeah, we've just had the US election. We think we have a victor, but there might be some stuff to go through court, so we'll know the outcome of that more fully by the time we get to watch this. Coronavirus is out there, but there's vaccine news today, so let's see where that leaves us. So that just places any context of what we're talking about today, in case the world has moved drastically again before you get to see this, because that's what seems to happen at the moment. But on the other hand, we are also talking about very universal principles here. So last time we talked about courage. This time, the second chapter in the book is called Enchantment. And it's essentially about ideas and creative ideas and life ideas. So Leslie, shall I hand to you, because when you first read this, you sort of found it a bit weird, didn't you? Shall I let you elaborate on that?
Yeah, first of all, I would say enchantment for me, it's like, okay, what does that mean? And for me, well, I looked it up in the dictionary to start with, and it's a quote: a feeling of great pleasure, delight, the state of being under a spell or magic. So I guess what we're talking about here is the magic of the Big Magic title. When I read the chapter on enchantment, I mean, we'll talk through this in a minute, but I just thought, when I first bought the book in 7th of October 2015, it was a bit too woo-woo for me. So, but now I've read it again, and it isn't. I absolutely agree with what she's talking about all the way through, because my experience supports it. So if you're feeling this is all a bit odd, go with it, listen to it. I like everything, you know, go with it and see where it lands, and be open to the possibility that it might just happen to be true. So yeah, go with it, I would say.
So what she says about ideas opening up in the chapter. So Elizabeth Gilbert, she kind of sees ideas as not people, but things, invisible things within their own right, really, don't they? And the idea, some people might call that the muse, but the idea sort of visits you. The idea needs a human really to come alive. So the idea, and it might be about writing a book or creating a community as you've done, or just, you know, making chutney or whatever it is. You know, creativity doesn't have to be art with a capital A. You know, lots of activities we do are creative. So there's an idea to create. Let's just use a story as an example. So a book about something, and that idea is out there, but it can't come to fruition. It can't be on a bookshelf until somebody runs with it and makes it and does the work for it. So it is quite a magical, it's quite woo-woo the way Elizabeth Gilbert describes this, because it's like ideas floating around there, and they choose a person to them and make manifest. But sometimes, you know, so we all have ideas. Sometimes we might have ideas late at night, and then the next morning think, oh no, I can't do that. Or, but you know, very often we find 100 reasons not to do something, or
Yeah.
we'd love to deep in our heart, but we
Mm.
think, no, I don't think I can, and we come up with all the excuses
Mm.
why we can't. So ideas are also quite transient, because if you're not going to do it, you know, the idea is going to move on, basically, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Or if you don't sort of get on with it quick enough. So it is. It is woo woo, but I think when you've done creative pursuits, or when you've done a project which is really close to your heart and your soul, I think, and you come out the other side of it, I think you can. I
Mm.
can certainly, yeah, I sort of bought
Yeah.
into it straight away. I'm like, yeah, that's how my writing works, you know.
Yeah, I think for me also is that actually happened to me when I mean, the idea to write a book had been sort of there at the background, but I'd kept saying no to it. And then all of a sudden I was sitting on a yoga mat in a class, and it just landed as to, yes, I've got to do it. I have to do it. It's my mission. Nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to write a book. And so, you know, I had to do it, and I wanted to do it as well. So there was what she talks about, you can say no, of course, and the idea will go off and find somebody else. Although it's never be the same book, would it? It would never be exactly, you know, there's only you can write your book, or there's only you can make a particular thing. But, and if you say yes, then there's a whole sort of journey that you have to go on. I mean, she talks about the tormented artist, and maybe we've all done a bit of that, but it's more about cooperating fully, humbly and joyfully with inspiration, which I kind of like that, isn't it? It's kind of, well, that's sort of fun then, isn't it?
She talks about being in partnership, which I quite like, don't we? Because she says you're not its slave or master, because sometimes, again, there is lots of people know, the tortured artist. Lots of people are being the tortured artist. Oh, I can't write until everything's perfect. I can't write because the muse hasn't come today, or circumstances aren't quite right. I'm a big fan of Stephen Pressfield, who's about getting through resistance and excuses. And he says, well, actually, the muse is only going to come and visit when she sees you working, you know.
Exactly.
So, you know, we need to create the habits around that. And so, Liz Gilbert talks about really being in partnership, because there are sometimes she's mentioned a couple of projects where actually it wasn't right for her. And she, you know, says, well, thank you very much for this idea, but I think you should move on and find someone better for it. So it's that graciousness, isn't it? Not being beholden, or, oh my God, I should have done it, or, you know, and all the angst around it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's and also the knowing that the inspiration can leave, as you said earlier, you know, we've all had ideas in the middle of the night, and then you've probably forgotten them in the morning because it was the wrong time, it was the wrong place, and or it was the wrong thing for you. You know, you didn't feel ready at the time. So it's that. I think there was a quote here I wanted to find, which I've highlighted, and of course can't find the right page. Yeah, keep your eyes open, listen, follow your curiosity. And trust in the miraculous truth that new and marvelous ideas are looking for human collaborators every single day. So it's also about being open, isn't it? To being maybe changing your state to just being open to things just coming to you, ideas just coming to you.
And what went through my head when you said that about being open is also the abundance of ideas. Because sometimes you think, oh, I've done this. You know, she herself had, you know, it's a massive hit book, Eat, Pray, Love. And you could get tortured and think, oh, I'll never be able to top that. Or what if I can never write again after that? Or what if things aren't as good after that? And I think she's sort of done the inner work to not get bogged down by that as much. And sometimes people think about like stealing ideas. She gives this great example, because obviously she went Eat, Pray, Love, she went off on a year traveling around, wrote about it. I mean, it was phenomenal luck that this turned into a massive book. And she talks about how, you know, she's been at book signings and people have come up to her angrily and said, you've stolen my idea and I was going to do that, and you know, it's not fair.
Exactly.
But her thing is, well, but you know, first of all, there could be two books on travel, but you know, she got on and did it, you know, because it's, you know, it's so easy, isn't it, to be sort of jealous of someone else's success or doing something, or thinking, oh, that's been done, I'll never get anything else. So it's about not getting bogged down with it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think also there's
abundance.
But she talks about measure your worth by dedication to your path, not by your success or failures. And I think, you know, I mean, I love that. I mean, we've both, I don't know, when did you start doing your blog?
I started Gentle Creative. I started it under a different name, Gentle Warrior, 2016. So it's coming up 5 years.
I mean, March 2013 was my first. Wow. I know they were crap, actually, really awful. But anyway, we've both been dedicated to our path, and we've both, you know, we've probably gone through the tormented artist at points.
Yeah, because you do go up and down through these cycles.
Exactly, and also that. I think you said in this your blog on the Stephen Pressfield book that, you know, sometimes you sit there trying to write and nothing comes, and it's like pulling teeth. For me, I used to say it's like pulling teeth, and then all of a sudden inspiration comes and you think, why didn't I write this before? And there you go, you know, you just flow. But it's also that not measuring your worth or success, actually, also by dedication to your path, not by your success or failures. You know, sometimes you get comments on blogs, sometimes you don't, but you do it for you. That's as much as anything, you know. That's always
and I feel that my publishing, having recently published this year, I mean, I've sold some copies. I'd love to sell more, you know. I could get bogged down just with the numbers, but actually I'm so glad that it's out there. You know, that's such creative fulfillment, and you know, and to get through all the barriers that have been there over the years. Shall I talk a bit more about Stephen Pressfield and these and where he looks at ideas?
Yes.
So I'm a big fan of Stephen Pressfield. He wrote a book called The War of Art, which is about getting through procrastination, and it's a lot of people are quite familiar with that book. This book, he brought this out I think a couple of years ago, The Artist's Journey, and what he essentially says in that, he says, it's very similar, it's totally sort of congruent with what Elizabeth Gilbert's saying, that it's essentially there's two worlds. There's my everyday world. Here I am, Cali, sitting at my laptop at my table, and then there's like this artistic realm. It's like the unseen, but it's where our potential is. And again, whether this is a business project or an artistic thing, or you're just going to start a new piece of needlepoint, whatever it is, you know, whatever your thing is, you kind of have to reach into that unknown. And there's a thing called the hero's journey, which is, again, all stories goes through that, whether it's the story of Moses or Luke Skywalker, or, you know, there is that journey that stories go through, the ups and downs of our emotions. And so you basically, when you get that hunch, when this idea comes to visit, you kind of have to reach in to this unknown place and pull back stuff into now, which is where you sit at your laptop typing it out or whatever you're doing. And then that's a continual cycle. And what stands between you and the idea coming to fruition is really our own fear and resistance, which we talked about in the last episode. So it's a continual reaching into the unknown, and he calls it this great realm of potentiality.
I like that. Well. It's good, isn't it? I agree completely. The hero's journey. I mean, I kind of base my book on the three acts of that, and I always think of every rom-com as the hero's journey, because there's no happy ending unless you change yourself, is there? So, you know, every rom-com, the girl goes off, guy thinks, you know, I'm going to stay, I'm going to keep the girl, but then he realizes he has to do something himself. And that's all. I know it's that's the hero's journey in a nutshell, isn't it? And I think
something goes wrong, doesn't it? And you have to fight yourself, don't you?
Exactly. And you know, we've both learned a huge amount through writing. We've changed, you know, for me, it was the whole process of grieving was my journey through writing my book. So I learned so much through it, and I changed so much by it. And it doesn't have to be a big project, as you say, you know. It could be cooking something. It could be any
garden, sorting out a new garden, like designing a new flower bed or something, isn't it?
Exactly.
But you still go through the ups and downs.
Exactly. And there's always that moment when you say, actually, do I want to do it or not? And then you go through that bit in the middle that says, actually, I've had enough of it. I don't want to continue.
I wish I'd started. But there's something that keeps you going there, isn't there?
There is.
You know, through those tricky times.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast of Brené Brown's actually the other day, and she was using a couple of metaphors from Caesar, because she kind of says, we've crossed the Rubicon, you know, because when his armies his armies were venturing on Rome, once they got across the Rubicon River, there was no going back. And I think that's that also with the lots of your projects. I mean, you can always stop, can't you? But you miss out on that learning and the change that's going to happen if you keep going. Actually, that's the thing. So yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
She also talks about again, back to the Romans, actually, not being a genius but having a genius.
Yes, that was quite fascinating, wasn't it? And again, Pressfield refers to that, and she mentions the word daemon, which is like genius. And yes, the thinking way back then in sort of Greek Roman times was that you had that. Yeah. But it's almost like it was a shared resource, or you were tuning in to a universal thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, there's also that going with the flow and all of that, isn't it, when you've got the genius. And also I think it's great to say that if it doesn't turn out as planned, then it's not your fault, it's your genius's fault. There's a bit of blame there. But so I would ask then, how do you nurture that genius? How do you encourage it?
I think you have to take action, because throughout this chapter it's this wonderful view of ideas, and she uses her own experience, and she does this great story about how a project she gave up on another writer friend without them ever conferring on this, you know, wrote a very similar story, and she could actually see the idea went from me to her. And again, it's already woo-woo, but I can totally buy into it. I don't know what it is, I just do. But throughout she does make the point that you need, certainly speaking as a writer, you need to do the work, you need to take action, you need to learn, because we have to learn the craft. And again, whatever activity you're doing, you know, we don't know how to do it well to start with. So again, it's that willingness to learn, seek advice, and class, do it with someone else, whatever's appropriate to the goal, really.
Is there also something, for me, it's also about, when I'm writing, it's also about being, the environment is the right, so, you know, I've got music, or, you know, sort of the essential oils, a separate space for, it's like, as you say, it's creating, nurturing maybe yourself and your genius to sort of encourage it, and knowing that it may or may not come.
And she makes a point as well, you just keep working anyway. And Pressfield always talks about that, you know, the muse is not going to come unless she sees you working already, you know. he's sort of strong on that. And I think you know, when we talked about the more ancient ideas of genius, that it wasn't yours, it wasn't you, it was more a universal thing. And then she talks about probably it was more in the Renaissance, where then, you know, we turned to people and said, oh, Leonardo da Vinci, you're a genius. That's where the idea of sort of genius being a genius rather than having genius. And I think that's also where then the ego comes into it, because then you have to live up to that. And that's where I think perhaps a lot of the sort of tortured artists sort of, and all the grief and strife also comes in, doesn't it?
Because there is that, you know, you can do everything you can, but once you put your work out there, you've got no control of it. And that's I'm sure we're probably going to talk about that in another episode, but you've no idea how people are going to respond, so you have to let it go. And I guess in some ways it's nice to know then that it's my genius that was at fault if it was a crap blog or spelling mistakes or something like that. But then on the flip side is that the genius takes the credit if it was really good. But there you go.
But it is. But yeah, I think about distancing yourself. I know that I can't remember which chapter they're in, but we're definitely going to hit upon that in the next week or two in one of the chapters. So we'll have more to say on that. I also like, she gave a couple of stories of, is it Ruth Stone, the parrot? And, you know, sometimes when people get inspiration, she talked about this lady who's a parrot who'd be out, you know, I think she owned a farm or something, didn't she? So she'd be out in the fields just doing her practical work, and she'd get an idea for a poem, and she'd have to sort of run and write it down, because literally it's like, you can imagine this poem going along in sort of railway tracks or something, and if she missed it, it's like the train, oh, it's gone. And how she would literally sometimes sort of reel it in and pull it back, and she'd write it down back to front.
And that was just like,
I mean, yeah, and again, it's woo woo, but I'm happy to buy into it.
Me too, actually. Yes, yeah. So we're up to 20 minutes. So
well, we better stop gassing, start rounding up then, haven't we?
So I guess my question then is, what are your takeaways?
I like for me, I very much am happy. You know, I feel I've been trained by Elizabeth Gilbert and Stephen Pressfield and Julie Cameron in my writing and artistic life. And especially Pressfield and especially Elizabeth Gilbert, it is do the work. So there's a quote at the end of this. Shall I read that? So yeah, this inexplicable urge. She says it's the very end, it's page 78 in my version. All I know for certain is that this is how I want to spend my life, collaborating to the best of my ability with forces of inspiration that I can neither see nor prove nor command nor understand. And I totally buy into that. My drive to write my stories, you know, it doesn't really make sense, but I'm driven to do it, and I just have to get them out, so they're there for other people if they want them.
Exactly. And other people if they want them, that's key as well, isn't it?
Yeah. What about you? What's your takeaway?
I think I've got two, actually. The first is about being open, just being open to ideas, not dismissing them, you know, just being open to things coming to you. And second is that there might be, about the hero's journey, is about there might be a hidden purpose that you'll only become aware of at the end. I mean, for me, when I was writing my book, it's like I want to write it because I want to hold it in my hand. And a couple of friends said to me, "That's not it. That's not it." And I was, "Yes, it is. Yes, it is." But when I'd got to the end of it, I realised that that was part of it, but it was also the fact that the work that I needed to do, the work to get there. You know, so that was important. And I'm going to add a third thing, which is the
go.
Another quote, actually.
Go on.
It's also about, I mean, I agree with your quote, it's how I want to spend my life, but it's also the quiet glory of merely making things and then sharing those with an open heart and no expectation.
That's lovely, isn't it? Can you read that again?
Oh, just shut the book now. The quiet glory of merely making things and then sharing those things with an open heart and no expectation.
That says it all, really, doesn't it? Shall we stop there?
I think we shall, yeah.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
We will.
Mission.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.